Hello everyone, good evening, Jai Bhim and welcome to Digital Nalanda. This is the special session which we conduct every month under our School of Buddhist Studies, where we discuss the basics in Buddhism. And with us we have Professor Bodhi from the Tata Institute of Social Sciences. Welcome, sir. एंड जैसे कि हमेशा की तरह हुआ है, ये थर्ड सेशन है और यहाँ पर हम बुद्धिज्म से लेकर जो बेसिक्स, बुद्धिज्म के बेसिक्स को लेकर जो आपके सवालात थे और आपकी जो भी उसके लेकर प्रश्न है वो आप यहाँ पूछ सकते हैं. Those who have joined us from other mediums like Facebook or YouTube, you can post their question. Post your questions over there. We'll pick it from there also. So please आप अपने सवाल पूछें. यहाँ पर लिख कर भी पूछ सकते हैं आप. जिस तरह YouTube पे भी जो हमारे साथ जो लोग जुड़े हैं वे लोग भी अपने प्रश्न जो है हमें पूछ सकते हैं.
So we can take up we can take up some of these questions that were there last gathering.
Sure, sir, sure.
Because there were a few questions which I thought we have not covered yet.
Yes, yes.
Especially the basics and the fundamentals of Buddhism. Like what are the basic fundamental concepts in Buddhism?
Yes, sir. We can begin with those, sir.
We can begin with that kind of a thing and then we can move on.
Sure.
You can see me clearly? Is my video clear? So I think one of the most important things that we need to do in order to provide some kind of a clarity about what Buddhism is all about. I mean, in the last two gatherings, what we have basically done is that we have somewhat engaged with at least some of the questions and the debates. Questions and debates concerning Buddhism, in which many of the people who have participated actively, I mean, I felt that there were questions that were to do with Buddhism per se. There were questions to do with the politics of Buddhism. There were questions to do with some of the theoretical aspects in Buddhism. There were questions regarding the applications of Buddhism. There were also questions in relation to the political condition that we live in. Like what would Buddhism, how would Buddhism respond to the political reality that we are in at this point in time? There were a few questions about Baba Sahib Ambedkar. And so there were many questions, and it being a basics in Buddhism kind of it's like an introductory course to Buddhism. I think we would have to leave out some of these very complex questions and as much as possible try to clarify, focusing on trying to understand what this Buddhism is all about. What does it mean? How do we read it? How do we understand some of the issues within Buddhism, some of the theoretical aspects concerning Buddhism, and so on and so forth. So to me per se, I think one of the most important things that we must keep in mind is that we have one of the things that we must basically do is to go back to these basics every time, because Buddhism is such a complex idea. It's very simple, but it's at the same time also very complex. And whenever we feel confused about Buddhism, confused about some of the issues in Buddhism, confused about some of the debates taking place within Buddhists and Buddhism in relation to others, we must always come back to the basics of Buddhism. So, if you ask me what is the most basic thing that we must learn in Buddhism, what is the thing that we must know at a very basic level? It simply refers to what does it mean to take refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. This is the basics of Buddhism. If you have not taken refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, Buddhism as a framework, Buddhism as a theory, Buddhism as an epistemology, Buddhism as a frame of reference, Buddhism as a philosophy, and even Buddhism as a religion will be difficult for you to even begin to understand. Only those who have taken refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha will this framework open up, and open up in such a manner as to provide you a Buddhist view of the world. So I know many of my own friends who are very interested in Buddhism, but because they have not taken refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, it becomes more of a theoretical debate from an outsider's point of view, from someone who has not yet walked the path or the Buddhist path. So it becomes, sometimes I don't get into discussion and debate too much, because until unless one has really taken refuge, it becomes very difficult to explain. Because Buddhism is such a challenging, difficult framework. It takes a lot of thinking, a lot of listening, a lot of engagement, a lot of self-reflection, a lot of cultivation. It takes all of these processes together in order to unravel what we understand called Buddhism. And the first point, as I said, to understand Buddhism is to first know what it means to take refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. Now, the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha is generally called Tiratana in Pali, and taking refuge is called Tisarana in Buddhism. Now, not that these words are important or not, it's important because this is a course, so some of these words, even I do not know Pali, I have learned these words by heart. So it's important to remember Tiratana and Tisarana. Tisarana is to take refuge in the Tiratana, Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. However, before we begin to get into the details of this taking refuge and what does it mean to take refuge, we must understand there is something very unique about Buddhism. Buddhism is very different from other religions because Buddhism is one of the few religions, more I would prefer calling Buddhism a philosophical framework rather than a religion, but it doesn't matter. One of the things unique about Buddhism as a religion is that Buddhism is one of the only religions in the world that demands cultivation of mind. There are some religions in the world that demands belief and faith. You must have belief, you must have faith in God, you must have faith in that religion, you must have faith in the framework of that religion. There are some religions that demand surrender. You must surrender to a particular concept of God in that religion. You must surrender yourself to that particular framework of that religion. Buddhism doesn't require you to believe. It doesn't require you to have faith. It doesn't require you to surrender. Buddhism demands from you just one single thing, and that is the cultivation of mind. This is the unique process in which Buddhism is different from other religions. Cultivation of mind is fundamental to the Buddhist practice. And this cultivation of mind should be actually embodied in all of us. And probably in later sessions, we can discuss what is cultivation. How do you cultivate your mind? But it suffices to say at this point in time that in Buddhism, when we say cultivation of mind, we are talking about reading. Reading is one of the ways in which you can cultivate your mind. Listening to good lectures is another way to cultivate your mind. Having deep, serious, very grounded, theoretical, intellectual discussions with your friends, with your colleagues, with your teachers is a way of cultivating your mind. Making presentations, sharpening the way you present, engaging with your own capacity to become very, very sophisticated in everything that you do, not compromising with excellence, that is called cultivation of mind. Being committed and sincere to everything that you do in your life, no matter how small it is, that is called cultivation of mind. And finally, one of the most incisive, superior method of cultivation of mind in Buddhism is what is called satipatthana. constitute of samadhi, constitute of this idea called sati, samma sati, which is to basically cultivate your mind in order to attain knowledge and wisdom through various processes, which we will discuss in other sessions, what it entails and what it means. So in Buddhism, for those who have begun to take refuge, the first thing that you must be told is that don't come to Buddhism if you are wanting to surrender to anything. Don't look at the Buddha statue and surrender to that statue. There's nothing to surrender there. Don't look at one statue and have faith and belief in that statue. There is nothing in Buddhism that celebrates belief and faith. It is not that it negates them. Sometimes it is important to do, but fundamentally in Buddhism, belief, faith, and surrender is not part of the Buddhist framework at all. Buddhism demands cultivation. It demands effort. It demands insights. It demands knowledge. It demands wisdom. It demands a tremendous commitment to anything and everything that you do in your life. To be a Buddhist and to be lazy is to go against the very ideas of Buddhism. To be a Buddhist and to not work hard, and not to compromise with excellence, these are the things that makes what is generally called the Buddhist personality. Committed, sincere, no compromise with excellence, giving your best to anything that you do. Why so? Because Buddhism demands this cultivation process. And never be at ease with just having attained something. You must always move up, always move up, always move up. You must push yourself from being better every day. If today this is one way you are doing in terms of, let's say, your assignments, your presentations, your article writing, your book writing, push yourself further, push yourself. It is this that embodies a Buddhist personality. Having taken refuge, now we need to understand what does it mean to take refuge. What is it that we take refuge to? When people say, I have taken refuge, the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, what does it mean to say like that? Now, there are many people across the world who understand this so-called Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, or the Tiratana, in very different ways. There are some people who look and understand these concepts in a very commonsensical manner. There are some people who go deeper into these concepts and try to understand it a little bit more in the theoretical manner. There are some people who go deeper into this concept and try to understand from an epistemological manner. Some people go further and understand it in the philosophical manner. And many, many more go deeper and deeper and deeper. These concepts that you see, these simple three concepts that you see, are not as simple as they seem. There is so much depth. There is so much substance. There is so much in each of these concepts that anybody who seeks the truth of the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha are bound to realize what the Buddha called, what Sakyamuni calls the truth. The realization of the truth and the experience of reality as it is, a direct experience of reality. Now, the first layer by which people begin to understand the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha is to kind of understood it in a very commonsensical manner. I've heard many people speaking like this. I don't know about you, but I've heard many, many people speaking on this language. When they refer to the Sangha, they tend to mean the Bhikkhu and Bhikkhuni Sangha. So many people will say Sangha as in to mean the Bhikkhuni and the Bhikkhu Sangha. That particular group constituted by those who have actually seriously committed themselves to the pursuit of truth in the Buddhist path by becoming a Bhikkhu and a Bhikkhuni. Now, for many people in the world, and I've seen this, a lot of people across the world, I do not know about India, but I've seen many people, especially in Southeast Asia, including Korea, Thailand, Japan, and many of these places. To use the word Sangha is to refer to this particular group, the bhikkhus and the bhikkhunis. Now, for many people in Buddhism who refers to this particular conception of the Sangha, for them, this thing called the Dhamma is often understood as some kind of a rule, some kind of a regulation, some kind of a dogma that was taught by someone who had a supernatural experience, a supernatural being, a supernatural, even a God himself. So when they refer to the Dhamma, they're referring to some rules and regulation and referring to something called dogmatic dogmas that were given by a Buddha who in their particular perception is a God. So Buddha is a God. And you will see them praying to Buddha, putting all kinds of incense to the Buddha. They will do all kinds of things, seeing this Buddha as a supernatural being, as someone who has some capacities beyond all human beings, who has the capacity of being a God himself. So at the first level, at the most, basic commonsensical level, when people say, I'm a Buddhist, what are you? What does it mean? Oh, I have taken refuge to the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. What is the Sangha? The Bhikkhu and Bhikkhuni Sangha. What is the Dhamma? The rules and regulations. What is Buddha? He's a supernatural being, with lots of powers. He can go from one realm to another realm. The God realm, this realm. He had experienced 71 realms of life. He has the power to change the world. He can do magic. He can do this. He can do that. So many people across the world, I know many of them who believe like that. And I know many of our own people believe like that. That if they go to this statue and they pray to this statue and they submit to this statue and they surrender to this statue and they put incense stick to this statue and they give some money to that statue, this statue will respond and do all the good things in your life. So the most commonsensical is this way of understanding. But as you can see, and as I can see, and anybody who thinks a little bit deeper will realize that this is not the only way to think about the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. This is one of the ways in which many people in the world do it, but this is not the only way. If you go deeper into understanding these processes, the minute you go deeper, you will realize that this thing called the Sangha does not only refer to the Bhikkhu and the Bhikkhuni Sangha. It refers to the Buddhist community as a whole, including the lay people, including people like you and me. So when we refer to the Sangha in Buddhism, it is not only the Bhikkhu and Bhikkhuni Sangha, but it is the Bhikkhu, Bhikkhuni and the lay Sangha, which includes everybody who is actually a Buddhist. This is called the Buddhist Sangha. So there are many people who hold to this kind of an understanding that when they use the word Sangha, they're referring to Bhikkhu, Bhikkhuni and the lay people like you and me, which constitutes the Buddhist community in the world. We are a Sangha. And our Sangha is the fourth biggest Sanghas in the world compared to Islam, Christianity and Hinduism. I belong to those who are in Japan. I belong to America. All of these are part of a larger Sangha. So there are many people who begin to think about the concept Sangha in this particular manner, seeking a deeper understanding beyond the Bhikkhu and the Bhikkhuni, entering the world of the lay, understanding that the Sangha refers to the larger Buddhist community. Now, for many people who believe that Sangha refers to such a conception, when they look at the Dhamma and try to explain the Dhamma for this kind of a way of looking or this kind of a perspective refers to some kind of a doctrine, some kind of a religion. So we are Buddhists and my religion is Buddhism, So when you ask them, what is Dhamma? Dhamma is a religion. Dhamma is a doctrine. Dhamma is what exactly we have got for the practices within the Buddhist community. And for many people at this particular level, when they use the word Buddha, they are referring to not a god or a supernatural human being as written in the so-called Jataka tales, but someone who's a human being who, like you and me, lived in this world, ate in this world, and also died from this world. So for a person who is a Buddhist, and who believes that Buddhism is this whole large community of people who follows the Dhamma, a religion, or so-called a doctrine. For us, the Buddha is not God. He's a human person who through sheer effort was able to attain great degrees of insights and wisdom. So we have to, now many people across the world, when they look at Buddhism, they don't believe like that. They don't think Buddhism is like that. They think the Buddha is a God. Why? Because they come from a world in which God is fundamental to their life. I have many people who come from the Christian background, who come from the Muslim background. When they ask me who is Buddha, and if I tell them that Buddha was a human being, they say, no, he's not. He's a God. He's not a human being. How can you? I know that's not. So I say, but no, in Buddhism there's no God. How can you say that there's no God? Then who is Buddha? So I said, Buddha is a human being. No, it's not. So the way they look at Buddhism is to look at it from their location and their lens, and to see Buddha also some kind of a God, because in their world there is a God. But for anybody who's a Buddhist, after taking refuge, they take refuge to the Sangha, to the larger so-called Buddhist community of the Bhikkhu, Bhikkhuni, and the lay. They take refuge to the Dhamma, to what, a practice, to a kind of a doctrine which constitutes a religion that gives you our identity as a Buddhist. And the Buddha is referred to a human person who through sheer self-effort was able to attain insights and wisdom about the world. And it is this particular experience of this particular individual who gave us this religion in order for us to be identified as one. Now, many people, at least in India, I know this is exactly how we perceive. When we say, I take refuge to the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, this is exactly what it means, taking refuge into that framework. But as you can see, anybody who goes deeper than this, you will see that this is not what it is all about. There is something more deeper in terms of the meaning, deeper in terms of the structure of meaning, deepening in terms of what it constitutes when you use the word Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Something deeper. This idea that Buddhism is only referring to the Buddhist people who basically are a religion that has a head called the Buddha is only one way of looking at the world. There is another way if you go deeper into these processes. I used to always ask myself, if the Buddha or Sakyamuni, our teacher, the great teacher, the wise teacher, was to conceive the Sangha only in this particular manner, there is something a little bit limited in the way he conceives. Then what is the difference between me and other religions in the world? Did the Buddha use the word Sangha only to refer to Buddhist people? Did he say the Sangha are only my followers? Did he say the Sangha are only people who believe in me, who follows what I teach? I used to think that if that's what the Buddha said, then the Buddha is not so great. What's so great about the Buddha, or what's so great about Sakyamuni, if his teaching is only that, people who follow me are people who will be, are people should be called Buddhists, or people who should be identified with my particular framework. And I used to think there is something deeper that he actually meant when he used the word Sangha. And anybody who seeks deeper, and ask yourself this question, did the Buddha mean Buddhist community when he used the word Sangha? What about the other people in the world? There's so many other human beings in the world. Did he not refer to them also? Did he only say that people who follow me are the one who should be identified as Buddhists, and those who don't follow me, you don't worry about them? They are not part of the Sangha at all? Anybody who goes deeper will realize that the word Sangha does not mean only those who are Buddhists. It means all of humankind. Every human is part of a Sangha. And this is a big Sangha. The Buddha was talking about the human Sangha. He was not referring to, some people who follow me and people who take this path and so on and so forth. He was referring to the human Sangha. He was talking about taking refuge in understanding the totality of humanity, that totality of being. And when he used the word Sangha in a deeper manner, there are many people in the world who begin to actually understand the word Sangha in this manner. For them, the Sangha is not Bhikkhu and Bhikkhuni. It is not merely bhikkhu, bhikkhuni, and the lay people who are Buddhists, but Sangha means all of humanity. And this is what the Buddha was referring to. This is what Sakyamuni was referring to. And for many people who begin to realize that the Sangha refers to all of humanity, then what is called the Dhamma is generally understood as what we would call the teachings of Sakyamuni, the Buddha, who in this sense is the knowledgeable one. He was a human being, but a knowledgeable human being. A human being with deep insights into reality. A human being with tremendous, insightful knowledge about reality. So when they take refuge to the ideas and the teachings of this great knowledgeable person. Because we belong, his teachings was for all of humanity, not only for Buddhists. And the Sangha is all humanity. Buddha taught not only the Buddhists, he taught everybody in this world. Never reduced the Buddha only to a particular religious group called Buddhism or Buddhists. He did not come to the world to teach only some people. He came to the world in order to teach everybody in what is understood as the human Sangha. Anybody who's read the suttas of the Buddha will know that every time when he refers to, he's talking about all of humanity. His concern was all of humanity. He's not concerned with only people who follow him. He will engage with anybody. And you will see, he'll engage with the Brahmins, he will engage with those people who follow other faiths, he will engage with everybody. And in that engagement, there will always be love, there will always be compassion, there will also be equanimity. This is how he basically engages with the world. So at this particular level, there are many people when they say, I take refuge to the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, they are basically saying, I take refuge to the knowledgeable one, to the teachings of the knowledgeable one, and to all of human society. I belong to what is called the large humanity, the large human society. This is exactly what it means to take refuge. And when you take refuge to the larger human society, you dilute your identity boundaries and merge with the larger society. One day, the Dalai Lama was asked one question. What do you think about conversion? So he says, I'm not concerned about conversion at all. Please don't convert to Buddhism. Just be a good human being wherever you are. Be a loving human being wherever you are. Be a compassionate human being wherever you are. That is enough. There is no need to convert from one religion to another religion and claiming that my religion is better than your religion is better. He said, no need to do all that. In Buddhism, there's nothing like that. Buddhism is not about converting. No one can convert to Buddhism. One only has to cultivate one mind and experience love, compassion, and equanimity. That's it. You are already a Buddhist. Whatever religion you might be does not matter at all. So this third level is what many people across the world basically tend to understand what taking refuge is all about. Taking refuge to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. So when people, you will hear, if you go to YouTube, you will listen to many YouTube. Go to YouTube and type Dhamma and listen to the talks on Dhamma. Many people will refer to the Dhamma as the teachings of the Buddha. So what is the Dhamma? The teachings of the Buddha. So it is in that particular sense, generally we understand this taking refuge into this particular Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha as a framework. So to go back and summarize a little bit before we go further, at the very commonsensical level, people who have not walked the path, their basic understanding, and I've seen this understanding held by many other people from other faiths and religion, that the Sangha are these people who wear this robe, who shave their head, and who carry one bowl. This is called the Sangha. Like in other religion, they have priests, they have, all kinds of groups. Nah. So in Buddhism, in Hinduism, you'll have the Brahmins. In Christianity, you'll have the priests. In other religion, you'll have someone else. In Buddhism, there is these priests, they call the bhikkhus and the bhikkhuni. They are the teachers. They are the one who's the Buddha? Someone who is basically a supernatural being, a god with a lot of capacity and a lot of human capacity to do miracles and magic and all of so on and so forth. And what is the Dhamma? Some rules, some regulations, some kind of a dogma taught by this God and supernatural being. Many other people also look at Buddhism like that. As a Buddhist, you should not get caught, because that's not what Buddhism is all about. That is only a way of looking of people who don't know, or that is a way of looking by people who have only begun to understand Buddhism, or that's a way of looking of only people who have never taken Buddhism seriously, although they are Buddhists. People who have not searched for the truth of what the Buddha taught, people who have not gone deep into what the Buddha has been teaching. The first level. The second level is the Sangha is not only Bhikkhu Bhikkhuni, but the lay people, the Buddhist Sangha. The Dhamma is the doctrine, the religion that we all experience and we live by. And the Buddha is a human person. The third level, as you go deeper, the Sangha is all of human society. The Buddha's message was for everybody, not only for one group. The Dhamma are the teachings, and the Buddha is this human person, but an extremely knowledgeable human person. Now, as you can see, anybody who thinks in this particular manner is starting to understand Buddhism, is starting to see the beauty and the depth in Buddhism. That this thing called Buddhism is not merely a religion, but a philosophy. It's a philosophy for all of humanity, not only for some people who follow the teachings of this particular person we call Siddhartha Gautama. This person called Siddhartha Gautama, who was Sakya Muni, the teachers of the Sakya community, who became a Buddha, was teaching. This message was for everybody, for America, for Japan, for Africa, it's for everybody. And there need not be any kind of religious touch to it. You need not be, you can be a Christian and still you are practicing Buddhism. You can be Islam and still you're practicing Buddhism. You can be any other religion in the world, but still you are a Buddhist. And by Buddhism, not another religion, but this framework of taking refuge into human society as a whole and valuing human society. Because it is a fundamental part of your life. You are human and you cannot run away from human society. You are born into human society. You cannot free yourself from the human society that you live in. And the teachings and this person called the knowledgeable one. Now, anybody who is thinking in this manner, this is not the end. Although this is how many of us think. This is not the end. This is not the end of Buddhism. This is not what taking refuge stops. This is not where taking refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha stops. Because anybody who's gone deeper will know that the Buddha was not such a limited person in terms of knowledge. The Buddha fully well knew. And if you look at the teachings of the Buddha, it is written everywhere. When the Buddha was referring to Sangha, he was not only referring to human society. He used one word called the sentient being. When he used the word Sangha, he was referring to the sentient being, all beings who can feel, both human and the animal world. There is no hierarchy. The Buddha never said that human beings are more important than animals, or that the animals are less important than humans, or that human beings are the center of the world. The Buddha never said that. He said there is something called the sentient beings. Beings who are not even human, but can feel the way humans feel. And when he was referring to what is generally called the Sangha, he generally was referring to the sentientness or the sentient beings that were existing in this world. And in that particular sense, for these sentient beings, when he used the word Dhamma, you will see a lace across the text, lace across the sutta, generally not referring only to teachings, but the Dhamma are guidelines and principles for your life. The Buddha always said, I'm not here to teach you what to do. I'm here to show the direction of where you should go. My teachings are principles. My teachings are guidelines for you to walk the middle path to search for truth. My teachings are not the beginning and an end in itself. And when you're referring to Buddha, you're referring to wisdom, to the wise one, to the sage, to someone who's very, very wise. And what's the difference between wise and just being knowledgeable? Wisdom is this thing called theory in action. Not merely being knowledgeable and theoretical and being very insightful about the world, but it should show in your action. till it shows in your action, you have not become a wise human being. You might give great lectures in the world, but your action is exactly against those lectures and whatever you preach. It is meaningless. For the Buddha, your actions are fundamental to what defines you as a human being. You can be called wise if what you preach is what you act and how you act. And the Buddha goes even deeper than that. Many people say, preach what you practice. The Buddha says, practice only that which you preach. First, you practice. Practice is fundamental in Buddhism. Don't preach something which you yourself cannot practice. So this wise one called the Buddha is another layer altogether. When you're taking refuge for people who have sought deeper into these processes, when they say Sangha, they're not referring to human being alone. They're referring to the sentient world. When they use the Dhamma, they're referring to guidelines and principles that will help you move towards the pursuit of truth. Baba Sahib was an amazing person to have recognized this part of the Buddha. And if you look at the Buddha and his Dhamma, if you look at the writings of the Buddha and the future of his religion, if you look at many of the texts of Baba Sahib on Buddhism, he would always speak of the Buddha as someone who points the way to truth. Someone who tells you where to go, someone who directs you to where to go, not someone who teaches you and claim that my teaching is superior. No one can beat my teaching. My teaching is the best. The Buddha says, please forget about my teaching. I'm only showing you the way. Walk it yourself. Action is fundamental. And until you act, you can never become wise. So for someone who goes deeper into taking refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, it is not as simple as we had spoken about. The Sangha is the sentient being. The Dhamma is the guideline and principles, and the Buddha is the wise one who has lived by action. So when you stand in front of the Buddha statue, and with whatever way you do it, folded hands or in your knees or whatever, and you say, I take refuge, every time the Buddhists will meet, you say, Buddham Sharanam Gacchami, Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami, Sangham Sharanam Gacchami. What do you mean by that? What do you mean? Are these simple words that you are referring to like a habit being taught by you by someone else? Or are you understanding what are you taking refuge into? What are you taking refuge into? If you do not know what you're taking refuge into, these are mere words, hollow words, means nothing at all. Your Buddham Sharanam Gacchami for 3 times does not make any meaning if you don't know what refuge you're taking in. So this is the way in which, as Buddhists, this is the way in which we need to understand. Remember, Buddhism is a knowledge system. Buddhism is a philosophy. Anybody who has gone to this particular detail of Buddhism has now begun to realize that Buddhism is not merely a religion to be followed. Buddhism is a way of life. Buddhism is a philosophy. Buddhism is a frame of reference. Buddhism is a framework. Buddhism is a way of walking and living in this world. It is a knowledge system to seek the truth of this world. And for the Buddha, it's very clear. He gave only 3. That which you are in, the Sangha. That which will guide you in terms of directions and principles and guidelines, the Dhamma. And that which will guide your action as fundamental to both knowledge, which is called wisdom. This is exactly what constitutes the world. If you say, I'm not interested in becoming wise, I want to be something else in life, that's your choice. The Buddha will not say that, there's no sin in Buddhism. Oh, you have sinned because you are not trying to be wise. Buddha says you decide for yourself what you want to do. No, teach me, tell me what is right and what is wrong. The Buddha says there's no right and wrong. You have to find out for yourself what is right and wrong. I can only give you the guidelines to find the truth of right and wrong, but I cannot define for you what is right and wrong. You have the agency and the capacity for your own decision making about your life. But remember, you're a sentient being like many other beings. You are not superior. In other religions and faith, human beings are superior. Animals are inferior to the human being. In the eyes of those other religions, God first created human beings, then he created animals. And animals are created only for the needs, to satisfy the needs of the human being. In Buddhism, no. You are a human being, but you're not superior to it at all. They also have feelings, and we must constantly be awakened to the sentient element in every being in this world. So this is what it means to take refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. But as I said, you have to go deep. If you do not go deep, you will not find it. You will not even understand what I'm saying. You will probably think, okay, this is too complex for me to understand. I'm not even understanding who's a human being and this person is telling me about a sentient being. You know, I'm not even understanding what is the Sangha properly in terms of Bhikkhu, Bhikkhuni. This person is talking about something else, sentient world, guidelines and principles and wisdom. Difficult for me to understand. Now, it has not ended here. Taking refuge in Buddhism doesn't mean that this is the end. There is something deeper. But one point that has to be understood here is that to enter the next realm, the deepest realms of Buddhism, of taking refuge, you have to do Satipatthana. Without Satipatthana, you can never realize the deeper truths of Buddhism. Only someone who has done Satipatthana, only one who has engaged in an objective, disciplined observation of body, mind, sensation, and the Dhamma will begin to unravel deeper meanings of the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. Now, I used to ask myself, if the Buddha referred to the Sangha as only meaning the sentient beings, is it possible for the sentient beings to survive in this world without the non-sentient world? Can the sentient being be alive or live in this world if there is no oxygen, if there's no nitrogen, if there's no tree, if there's no stone, if there's no water? All the non-sentient things that exist in this world, is it possible for sentient beings to survive? Will we even survive? And I used to ask myself, if the Buddha referred to the Sangha only as sentient beings, did he negate the non-sentient world? Did he not speak about the other world, the water, the trees, the plants, the vegetables, everything that exists that gives life and allow for life to actually permeate in this particular earth that we live in? And anybody who has gone Satipatthana will realize that the deeper meanings of the Sangha is not only sentient beings. It is the totality of both the sentient and the non-sentient world, because the sentient cannot live without the non-sentient world. So the sentient, non-sentient world, the totality of this sentient and non-sentient world, the world in which you can feel, and there are many others, even animals, there is something, many people are doing a lot of research and saying even plants can feel, even trees can feel, even everything can feel, even a bird can feel. Feeling is not the prerogative or the, the right only of human beings and certain kind of animals in the animal world. If you go deeper, you will realize, and there are many suttas, that when the Buddha referred to the Sangha, he was talking about the totality of this world. He was not only talking about sentient. He was talking about the earth and the universe itself. The totality of what you understand called sentient and non-sentient as one, because one cannot live with the other, without the other. And when he was referring to the Dhamma, he was not only referring to guidelines and principles, which what the Dhamma is, but he was referring to the universal law, the underlying laws of the universe, the universal underlying laws of the universe that governs all universe. And when he was referring to the Buddha, he was referring to the enlightened one, the awakened one who has awakened to the truth of the universal laws and to the truth of matter, form, and substance, which is both the sentient and the non-sentient world. So this is the message, how massive the Buddha's message is. Not only about us. Taking refuge is to take refuge to this world of the sentient, non-sentient as fundamental. Without this, you can't survive. And Buddha says, respect this. Take refuge in this. Value this. Never destroy this. Don't destroy mountains. Don't destroy hills. Don't pollute water. Don't pollute the environment. Otherwise, you will not survive. The Sangha will not survive. If we ourselves are responsible to pollute the world and cut the trees and destroy everything that we see. The Dhamma is not merely rules and regulations and guidelines and teaching. It is the universal law that keeps the universe together. And the Buddha is one who is awakened to all of this. That is what the Buddha means. Who is the Buddha? The awakened one. Awakened to what? To the reality as it is. To the realities of the universal, underlying universal laws of the universe. And to what is generally called the sentient and the non-sentient world as one. The totality of the universe. This is to me the message of the Buddha. It is here that we have to begin to understand. This is how deep Buddhism is. And I'm telling you now, if you have not understood what it means to take refuge with the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, your understanding is limited and you will see the world only from that location. Buddhism is a total philosophy. It's the philosophy about everything in this world. Scientists across the world are beginning to appreciate Buddhism because it's the total philosophy. It's a philosophy that is both scientific, talking about physical laws, talking about chemistry and biology. It's a philosophy that talks about human beings. It's a philosophy that talks about art. It's a philosophy that talks about history. It's a philosophy that talks about geography. It's a philosophy that talks about, name it, all of the humanities. Buddhism is a total philosophy. It is not one small philosophy of some people calling themselves Buddhists. No. This is a philosophy of the world, and many people across the world, especially scientists, go to YouTube, fuck up anything on Buddhism and science. You will see more scientists are moving to Buddhism. Because that which science cannot do, in Buddhism lies the answer. But what is the worst part with us? Buddhists themselves are not awakened to this. It is rare to have produced a Buddhist scientist. How many scientists we have who are Buddhists? How many Buddhists we have who value the totality of the universe, matter, substance, and everything else that exists, who value water, who value the trees, who value the dogs, who values the cat, who sees beauty in everything that is called the universe. And how many probably have got awakened to that reality? Remember, the Buddha is not one who has come and will go. There are many Buddhas who have come and also will go. The Buddha never said that I'm the only one who will experience it, others will never experience my experience. No. He says, you for yourself, before he dies, he says, be steadfast in what you do, because you also have the capacity to be the Buddha. You know, this is what it means to take refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. In Buddhism, there is a talk. There are two types. When people are beginning to explain this, the Sangha as referring to sentient, non-sentient as one, the totality of everything in the universe, they refer to it in theoretical sense. They use the word, what is called matter, substance, and form. Matter and everything in the world is constituted by physical matter. Okay, they are what we call substance. And they arise in the world, across the universe, in various shapes and sizes and forms. So when you use the word form, you're referring to length and breadth and height and shapes and size. This is what form is. If you go out of your room right now and look up, everything in this world is matter, form, substance. The tree has its own form. The dog has its own form. The human has its own form. And these forms are not permanent. They constantly evolve from time to time. When you're referring to the universal law, in Buddhism now it is clear. The talk about the universal law is that the Buddha was referring to gravity, to electromagnetism, to the quantum force, to the nuclear force, the weak and the strong force, and many other forces which he explained, which science has not been able even to decipher till today. He was talking about first realm, the second realm, the third, the fourth. He went to 27th. Science has only been able to reach the 13th realm till today. First realm, point. Second realm, 2 points being connected in a line. As in to experience, human beings like us, we experience 4 realms or 4 dimensions of life. Forward, backward, left, right, up, down, 3 dimensions. If you add time, We experience four-dimensional world. Our world is a four-dimensional world. The Buddha experienced 25 dimensions. And if you go into anybody who is interested in understanding the Buddha properly, go to the debates in science and understand what are the debates regarding dimensions in the world. And when you're referring to the Buddha, you're talking about the enlightened one. There is another way in which people explain this. They say that sentient and non-sentient is matter, form, and substance. The universal law is what the Buddha called the great law. The great law, the law that encompasses everything. And the enlightened one, or the Buddha, is one who has experienced the total reality, the reality as it is. At this level, who is the Buddha? The one who has experienced the reality as it is. What is the Dhamma? The great law. What is the Sangha? Matter, form, and substance. It is to this that we take refuge to. This is the greatness of Buddhism. This is how big and massive Buddhism is. There are two beautiful words in Pali. One is called Samutti Sakka, that is conditioned truth, truth experienced in the Sangha, in matter, form, and substance. And this truth is generally called dialectical truth, conventional truth, relative truth. In this particular realm of the Sangha, of matter, form, and substance, there can never be one truth. There can always be dialectical truths, two truths, three truths, four truths. And generally they use the word samukti sakka as to refer to conditioned truths, relative truths, dialectical truths. In this world in which we live in, constituted by matter, form, and substance, there will always be dialectical truth, meaning there will always be politics. There will always be the question of power. And as Buddhists, we must be very sophisticated in understanding power. A Buddhist who doesn't understand how power works, you have no right to call yourself a Buddhist. Buddhists should be the most politically sophisticated people. If there is one thing that demands from us as Buddhists, whether we are active or not active is a different matter. But we are supposed to be politically sophisticated. When we look at the world, we should know how to analyze the world in a very sophisticated manner. Unfortunately, I've found many Buddhists who are so politically unsophisticated. When you ask them how to even interpret the political condition of any so-called immediate thing that they experience, they will not even be able to explain. Instead, they will tell me, sir, I don't like politics. Please don't play politics. I used to say, then you're not a Buddhist. You don't know politics means you don't know Buddhism. Because the Buddha was talking about conditioned, relative, dialectical truth. In that, power is fundamental. It subsumes your life and my life. Don't run away from power. Engage with it. The Buddha gave you a path how to even engage with power. And when you are referring to the Buddha, there's a Pali word called Paramatta Sakka, or what is generally called the ultimate truth, the unconditioned, the unborn, the unarisen, the actual reality, the actual truth that exists. So there are these two beautiful words, Paramutti, Sammutti Sakka, which refers to relative truth, and Paramatta Sakka, which refers to what is called the ultimate truth. When we take refuge, when we say, I take refuge to these laws, the laws of the conditioned reality. No human being is free from the conditioned reality. No human being is free from the great law that governs all of us, whether you like it or not. You are nothing but an electromagnetic human being who has all cells passing through your body up and down all the time. And to imagine yourself that you are part of the laws of the universe, then you are not knowing what you're talking. Because you are itself a part of that law. You're not out of the laws of the universe. Electromagnetism runs through your body. Gravity is the reason why you're standing and sitting and talking to me. Otherwise, you would be flying in the air somewhere. The nuclear force, the weak and the strong force, the quantum world, the quantum realities that are begin to emerge, these are all part of what is called the universal laws of the universe. And when you talk about the Paramatta Sakka, you're talking about the ultimate truth, the reality as it is. So you see, taking refuge to the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha is a very deep process. And unless you put effort, none of what I spoke to you will even be able to be understood by anybody. You cannot even begin to say, what is this person saying? What is he talking about? Substance, form, and matter, and Sangha? I've never heard something like this. He's talking about great law, universal law, Samutti Sakka, Paramatta Sakka. He's talking about enlightenment. He's talking about reality, the unarisen, the unborn, the unmanifested. What does it mean? Even if you do not understand, this is the framework. This is called the Buddhist frame of reference. When Buddhists look at the world, this is their frame of reference. This is how Buddhists. I stand in front of the Buddha statue, I stand in front of a bhikkhu or bhikkhuni, I stand in front of my own lay person, I stand in front of everybody, and I say, Buddham Sharanam Gacchami, Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami, Sangham Sharanam Gacchami. This taking refuge opens up a world, a tremendous unraveling of the world from a Buddhist perspective. Now you'll be able to see the world as it is. That this world, and the Buddha gave only 3 words, and the Buddha was clear. In this world, there must be Sangha. You cannot run away from it, so value it. There will always be Dhamma. There is no way you're out of it because it defines you all the time. And there is also the Buddha, the reality as it is. You are not free from these 3 things. Something very fundamental. There are many religions who have this 3 concept. It's not only Buddhism. But Buddhism is the most beautiful interpretation of what is called the Trinity. That's why we call it Tisarana. Christians call it Trinity. Other people call it something else. In Buddhism, we call it Tisarana. Taking refuge to these 3 things. That is the way in which we should begin to understand. These are very complex processes. Think. We have a month to think seriously about this. And without thinking, nothing in Buddhism works. Unless you put effort, you cannot learn in Buddhism. Because Buddhism is a knowledge system in which you must put effort to cultivate the mind. You don't come here and surrender to anybody. You don't come here. That's why Baba said, made one beautiful line, when he was talking in 1936-37. He says, don't surrender to anybody. Believe in yourself. Don't surrender to anybody. This message is the crux of Buddhism. In Buddhism, Buddhism is the only framework in which someone can stand and says, don't surrender to anyone. In you lies all the answer. You might be poor, you might be, whatever situation you might find yourself in. Never accept that. Don't allow others to think for you. Don't allow others to define your life. Think for yourself. Work very hard. Cultivate your mind. Move on and move on and move on. This is the message of the Buddha. This is what Buddhism is all about. This is what taking refuge means. If you don't do that, taking refuge is meaningless. These words, Buddha, Sharanam, Gacchami, are meaningless. It doesn't mean anything at all. In Buddhism, they are not, phrases to repeat every time you meet. No, they are meaningless. You don't know what it even means. What is the use of repeating them? Better not to repeat if you don't know. So I will stop here. We can discuss a little bit because I think we have some time to work.
Yes, sir. A bit. I'll also make some whatever you have said. I'll translate it in Hindi also.
Yeah, please do that.
Yeah. So, जैसे कि सर ने भी कहा कि जब भी हम बुद्धिज्म के कॉन्सेप्ट्स पर गौर करते हैं, उसकी कॉम्प्लेक्सिटीज के तरफ गौर करते हैं, पर ये जरूरी हो जाता है कि वापस हमें बेसिक्स की तरफ भी जाना होगा, क्योंकि ये हमेशा का जो आगे बढ़ के एक बार फिर से पीछे आकर पुनः जांच करना, ये बहुत अच्छी एक्सरसाइज है, जिससे हम ये भी जानते हैं कि क्या हम सही तरीके से लोग सोच रहे हैं। तो जिस तरह हमने आज फिर से शुरू किया कि हम बेसिक्स की तरफ गए, बेसिक्स में हमने जाना कि जैसे तीसरण हम जिसे कहते हैं, तीसरण यानी बुद्ध धम्म संघ, इन 3 रत्नों को त्रिरत्न कहते हैं, जिन्हें हम इन 3 रत्नों को जैसे कि हिंदी या अभी के जो भाषा में शरण हो गया है शब्द, हमारे यहाँ वो पाली में शरणन है। शरणन से अर्थ जो शरण का होता है वो कतई नहीं है। और जिस तरह रेफ्यूज का मतलब भी लिया जाता है, यानी पूरी तरह सरेंडर होना, पूरी तरह उसमें उस न्यौछावर कर देना खुद को, ये भी नहीं है। तो क्या है असल में बुद्धिज्म में रेफ्यूज लेना, या बुद्धिज्म में, या हमारे इन तीन रत्नों में, बुद्ध धम्म संघ नाम के जो तीन रत्न हैं, उनमें शरण लेना, शरणन जाना, यानी तिसरणन होना, मतलब क्या है? तो जैसे हर किस्म, हर अंडरस्टैंडिंग की परतें होती है। बुद्ध के धम्म में ये एक, हमेशा की तरह देखा जाए तो ये कोई एक विस्तृत एक फ्रेमवर्क है जिसमें आप परत दर परत डीप जाते हैं, और कोई भी परत गलत नहीं होती। ये हमारे साथ हमारे बुद्धि के विकास का ही एक एक रिफ्लेक्स होता है। जैसे हम आगे बढ़ रहे हैं उसी तरह हम धम्म में भी डीप जाते हैं, या अंदर डीप जाते हैं। तो एक जो बहुत ऑनेस्ट अंडरस्टैंडिंग है, और बहुत ही जिसे कहते हैं कि बुद्धिज्म के ही अनुरूप शुरुआती लेयर के अंडरस्टैंडिंग है कि संघ मतलब क्या। तो संघ से जनरली देखा जाता है कि हमको दिखते हैं भिक्खु और भिक्षुणी दिखते हैं, और उसे कॉमन सेंसिकली हम सोचते हैं कि हाँ यही बुद्ध के संघ है। दूसरा धम्म जो होता है वो एक किस्म का जिसे कहते हैं एक किस्म का एक्सपीरियंस जो किसी एक व्यक्ति ने अपने लाइफ टाइम में लिया है, और वह अपने शिष्यों को या संघ को दे रहा है। और बुद्ध जो है वो व्यक्ति है जिसको वो एक्सपीरियंस हुआ है। ये बहुत कॉमन सेंसिकल अंडरस्टैंडिंग है, यानी जनरली लोग इस तरह सोचते हैं। लेकिन जब आप बुद्धिज्म के फ्रेमवर्क से सोचना शुरू करते हैं तो आप और डीप जाते हैं, और ये सोचते हैं कि संघ जो है ये केवल भिक्खु भिक्षुणियों तक ही सीमित नहीं है। ये उन आम लोगों को भी एनकम्पास करता है जिन्हें हम बुद्धिस्ट कहते हैं, क्योंकि भगवान बुद्ध या बुद्ध केवल भिक्षु संघ को ही एड्रेस नहीं कर रहे होते। बुद्ध ये सभी बुद्धिस्ट लोगों को एड्रेस कर रहे होते। तो फिर यहाँ इस लेवल पर धम्म वो हो जाता है। धम्म एक ऐसा जिसे कहते हैं धर्म, या एक जिसे कहते हैं पद्धति, अंग्रेजी में जिसे डॉक्ट्रिन कहते हैं, प्रणाली कहते हैं जिसे हम हिंदी में, उस किस्म की एक व्यवस्था हो जाती है धम्म, जिसके अनुसार ये संघ के लोग अपनी लाइफस्टाइल और दिनचर्या करते हैं, और ये एक आइडेंटिटी बन जाती है। और यहाँ बुद्ध जो है ये एक ऐसे ह्यूमन बीइंग है, कोई गॉड नहीं है, कोई ईश्वर नहीं है, जो इस प्रकार की चीजें या इस प्रकार के जो प्रणाली बनाने के लिए सक्षम रहे हैं, और वो उस किस्म की स्टेट पर पहुंचे हुए एक विद्वान व्यक्ति है, और जिसे हम कहते हैं दुनिया को जानने वाले व्यक्ति। अब यहाँ पर ये अंडरस्टैंडिंग हो गई है हमारी, लेकिन सर और कहते हैं कि हम, और जब बुद्धिज्म में हम धीरे धीरे आगे बढ़ते हैं तो हम अंडरस्टैंडिंग में और डीपर जाते हैं, डीप गहराई में जाएंगे नेक्स्ट लेवल पर। जब हम पूरी दुनिया को देखते हैं, भगवान बुद्ध क्या केवल ह्यूमन बींग्स को ही, केवल हम जैसे लोगों को ही क्यों मानेंगे कि हम संघ में, यानी उनका क्या कि जो यानी बुद्धिस्ट नहीं है, क्या उनको छोड़ देंगे? तो संघ के माने यहाँ पर डीपर अगर हम जाते हैं तो संघ के माने होते हैं कि संघ है ये दुनिया भर के जो सारे ह्यूमन बींग्स है उनको एनकम्पास करता संघ है। और धम्म यहाँ क्या हुआ? धम्म जो है भगवान बुद्ध की टीचिंग्स, भगवान बुद्ध के मार्ग, भगवान बुद्ध के बताए हुए रास्ते। और बुद्ध जो है यहाँ पर क्या होते हैं? बुद्ध यहाँ पर वह व्यक्ति होते हैं जो इस रास्ते को खोजते हैं, इस रास्ते को सभी के लिए लाते हैं। तो उनके लिए संघ का जो स्वरूप है वो बहुत बड़ा हो जाता है। वो पूरी जो अर्थ में बसने वाले ह्यूमन बीइंग्स हो जाते हैं। और सर ने जैसे कहा कि यहाँ पर किसी धर्म विशेष में कन्वर्ट होने की जरूरत नहीं है। जैसे दलाई लामा ने कहा था कि आपको बुद्धिस्ट होने के लिए कन्वर्ट होने की जरूरत नहीं है, आप जहां भी है एक आप बेहतर ह्यूमन बने, दैट इज सफिशिएंट। इस किस्म से डीपर हम जाते हैं तो हम और ज्यादा क्लियर होते हैं। इसके भीतर और हम जाते हैं तो जिसे हम कहते हैं ना बुद्धिज्म के ही धारा में, उसी फ्रेमवर्क में हम और डीपर जाते हैं तो हम ये देखते हैं कि संघ जो है, अब अगर हम बुद्ध को देखें, बुद्ध की जो पूरी उनके वर्क को देखें, उनके काम को देखें, तो क्या वो केवल ह्यूमन से ही रिलेशन रखेंगे? क्या वो उन जीवों को छोड़ देंगे जिनके आसपास हम रहते हैं? उन जानवरों का क्या, जो फील कर सकते, उन ऑर्गेनिजम्स का क्या, जो फील कर सकते, जो संवेदनशील है? तो यहाँ पर ये होता है कि जिस भी ऑर्गेनिज्म में, जिस भी ऐसे बीइंग्स है जो दुनिया में जिनमें संवेदनशीलता है, उसे बुद्ध संघ का एक भाग मानते हैं। और संघ जो है वो ह्यूमन बीइंग से भी बियॉन्ड जाते हुए सारे वो जीव जो संवेदनशील हैं, जो संवेदना फील करते हैं, उन सबको एनकम्पास करता है, ये संघ है। और धम्म जो है वो धम्म वही हो जाता है कि इन सबको जो बांधे रखने वाली, इन सबको जिसे हम कहते हैं एक संग रखने वाली या एक सूत्र में बांधने वाली एक व्यवस्था को धम्म कहते हैं। इनको गाइडिंग, इनके लिए जो गाइडलाइंस बनी है उसको धम्म कहते हैं। और बुद्ध जो है वो इस किस्म से अब केवल नॉलेज देने वाले नहीं बनते, वो ऐसे वाइज पर्सन के रूप में यहाँ उभरते हैं, या ऐसे प्रज्ञा की एक जिसे हम हिंदी में प्रज्ञा कहते हैं, विजडम कहते हैं, उसका एक हमको एक मूर्त कहेंगे या जिसका एक इंडिविजुअल कहेंगे, तो प्रज्ञाशील व्यक्ति बोलकर उभरते हैं, जो ये जानते हैं कि केवल बात करने से कुछ नहीं होगा, आपको वो बात करनी होगी जो आप खुद प्रैक्टिस करते हैं। क्योंकि जब आप प्रैक्टिस करेंगे वही चीज आपके इर्द गिर्द के वातावरण से जुड़ेगी, और इर्द गिर्द के वातावरण में हर संवेदनशील जो ऑर्गेनिज्म है उससे आपका ये संबंध आना ही है। इसलिए बुद्ध यहाँ पर एक वाइज, एक प्रज्ञाशील व्यक्ति या प्रज्ञाशील एक स्टेट बोलकर यहाँ उभरती है। अब बाबा साहब यहाँ पर ये कहते हैं कि बाबा साहब ने इस चीज को बहुत भली भांति जाना। बाबा साहब ने इस मौके को, जब भी हम उन पर ये जिम्मेदारी आई थी, इस जो भी हमारा एक कुनबा था या हमारे एक दौर को ले जाने की, उन्होंने बहुत मौके पर ये बात कही कि बुद्ध ने कभी अपनी जगह उस तरीके से जो बाकी धर्मों में फाउंडर्स ने कही है उस तरह से नहीं की है। उन्होंने कहा कि ये मार्ग है और इस मार्ग पर ही आपको, अगर आपको सत्य के खोज करनी है, आपको इसका जानकारी लेनी है, तो आपको ये मैं रास्ता दिखा सकता हूँ। ये नहीं कि मैं बोल रहा हूँ सत्य है, गलत है, ये नहीं कि मैं बोल रहा हूँ तो आप मानो ही, बट ये रास्ता है और ये मैं आपको डायरेक्शन दिखा। इस किस्म का प्रैग्मेटिक, इस किस्म का जो अप्रोच है, क्योंकि वो उन्होंने खुद प्रैक्टिस किया था और वो आपको उस तरफ ले जा रहे थे। अब और डीपर जब हम गए इस लेवल में, तो हमने ये जाना कि जब हम जानते हैं कि केवल संवेदनशील ही लोग हैं इस दुनिया में, संवेदनशील ही चीजों को क्या इनकम्पास किया जाए, क्या हमारे इर्द गिर्द जो है कुदरत है, माउंटेन्स है, पानी है, एयर है, ऑक्सीजन है, इनका क्या, अगर हम इनसे हमारा कोई रिलेशन नहीं है, क्या बुद्ध इनके बारे में पूरी तरह हमको जैसे कहते हैं इनको केयर नहीं करना या इनके बारे में कुछ दायित्व हमारे नहीं? तो ऐसा नहीं है। बुद्ध ने इवन काफी जगह ये लिखित में भी आया है कि बुद्ध का बहुत सीरियस इस पर कंसर्न था कि कुदरत का, और जिसे हम नॉन सेंटियन कहते हैं, गैर संवेदनशील भी जो कंपोनेंट्स है इस अर्थ के, इस वर्ल्ड के, इनका भी संघ में स्थान है और ये भी संघ में शामिल है। तो इस तरह से बुद्ध इन चीजों को भी एनकम्पास करते हैं संघ में। पानी है, ऑक्सीजन है, पहाड़ है, और इसको लेकर भी ह्यूमन के दायित्व है। तो धम्म जो है अब क्या हो जाता है, धम्म अब यूनिवर्सल शेप ले लेता है। यूनिवर्सल मतलब सर्व, उसका सार्वभौमिक, या जिसको कहते हैं ना सर्वव्यापी, उसका एक स्थान बन जाता है। और इस सर्वव्यापी स्थान को, या इस सर्वव्यापी जिसे कहते हैं एक कायदा या लॉ है, जिस प्रिंसिपल पर ये जो दुनिया है या इस वर्ल्ड का या इस यूनिवर्स का जिसे कहते हैं ना रिलेशन चलता है। और ये रिलेशन है, ये ऑर्डर है जिसे मेंटेन करना या जिसे मेंटेन करने की जो एक रूल बुक है या फिर जो उसका एक लॉ है, वो है धम्म। बुद्ध जो है यहाँ पर, बुद्ध कौन है? बुद्ध वो है जो इस रियलिटी को, ये रियलिटी क्या है, ये रियलिटी वो है जो संघ को, जिसे हम कहते हैं, जिसमें आगे है सेंटिएंट बीइंग्स भी, संवेदनशील लोग बीइंग्स भी, नॉन सेंटिएंट बीइंग्स भी, और एक तरह से पूरे यूनिवर्स में जो भी चीजें आती है, खत्म होती है, बढ़ती है, तो इसको कहा है मैटर, फॉर्म एंड सब्सटेंस, यानी जिसे हम कहेंगे पदार्थ, तत्व, पदार्थ, और जिसे हम कहते हैं शेप्स या फॉर्म्स। तो इस किस्म की चीजों को पूरे इनकम्पास करती जो संघ की अवधारणा है, उसको जानने वाले, उसके लिए अवेकन होने वाले, और हर उस स्थिति को जानने वाले जिसमें ये संघ पनपेगा, उस स्थिति को कहेंगे हम बुद्ध। उस स्थिति को कम कहेंगे हम एनलाइटेंड वन, जो इन चीजों को जानकार है। और इसीलिए बुद्धिज्म जो है ये टोटल फिलॉसफी मानी जाती है, जैसे सर ने कहा, क्योंकि ये साइंसेस को भी, हिस्ट्री को भी, ज्योग्राफी को भी, आर्ट्स को भी इस तरह से उसमें इंटरवीन करते, इन विभागों में इंटरवीन करते हैं कि आप इसमें नॉलेज जनरेट कर सकते हैं। ये किसी और फ्रेमवर्क में आप नहीं देख पाएंगे। तो नॉलेज जनरेट करने की कैपेसिटी, नॉलेज प्रोड्यूस करने की कैपेसिटी बुद्धिज्म के इस फ्रेमवर्क में है। तो हम जिस तरह ये डीप जाते हैं, जिस तरह हम धीरे धीरे डीप जाते हैं, उसके लिए एसेंशियल है जानना कि हम किस तरह डीप जा सकते हैं। और डीप जाने के लिए, जैसे कि सर ने कहा कि आपको सती पठन जो है, जिसको कहते हैं, उसका आपको एफर्ट करना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि बिना एफर्ट किए, बिना बुद्धिज्म में रुचि लिए, और रुचि भी कैसे लेंगे, आपको इस तरह एफर्ट करने होंगे, तब तक आप इस लेवल पर डीप आप जा नहीं पाएंगे। हाँ, लेकिन उसका मतलब ये नहीं कि आप बुद्धिज्म में है ही नहीं। आप बुद्धिज्म में भले आप हाथ जोड़ के त्रिशरण पंचशील भी बोल रहे हैं, आप उसमें, आप भीतर है उसके, बट जब तक आप एफर्ट नहीं करेंगे, आप डीप नहीं जा सकते। सर ने जैसे कहा कि साइंसेस ने अभी तक 13 डायमेंशंस की बात की है, और हम जो ह्यूमन है हम 4 डायमेंशंस जानते हैं, ऊपर नीचे और इधर, और टाइम को एक देख ले तो एक चौथा डायमेंशन। लेकिन बुद्ध ने 27 डायमेंशंस अपने समय में बताए थे, और मैटर फॉर्म एंड सब्सटेंस जो है, जो संघ है, वो इस किस्म से फैला हुआ है। तो इस किस्म की इंटरवेंशन करने वाले बुद्ध, इस किस्म की जानकारी रखने वाले बुद्ध, इनका स्थान जरूर ऊंचा है, लेकिन वे ये भी नहीं कहते कि हमारे जैसा कोई हो नहीं सकता। वे ये भी नहीं करते कि आप ये जानकारी खुद प्राप्त नहीं कर सकते। इस वजह से ये चीज हमारे लिए बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट हो जाती है। इसलिए एफर्ट करना और जिस तरह से ये चीजें उभर के आती है, ये जानना, ये बहुत जरूरी है। सर ने और एक चीज कही थी कि जब हम संघ की श्रेणी में रहते हैं तो हम एक जिसे कहते हैं समुच्चय सत्ता, यानी रिलेटिव ट्रुथ, यानी हमसे जुड़े हुए जो सत्य हैं उससे रूबरू होते हैं। तो जिस भी व्यक्ति को, जो भी यहाँ एग्जिस्ट कर रहा है, उसका अपना एक रिलेशन है अपने सराउंडिंग से, यानी इसे हम एकेडमिक भाषा में पॉलिटिक्स भी कहते हैं। तो आपका दायित्व, आपका रिलेशन उस जगह से होता ही है, उसको बुद्धिज्म नकारता नहीं है। बुद्धिज्म आपके राजनीतिक और सामाजिक रिलेशन को नकारता नहीं है, उसको अपना के आगे बढ़ने कहता है। और दूसरा एक पारामत सत्य जो सर ने कहा, वो है अल्टीमेट ट्रुथ, यानी इस सत्य को जानने के बाद जब आप आगे बढ़ते हैं, जब तक आप जिसे मैटर फॉर्म एंड सब्सटेंस को पूरी तरह जानने के बाद जब आप आगे बढ़ते हैं तो आप अल्टीमेट ट्रुथ की तरफ बढ़ते हैं। तो बुद्ध ने एक बहुत बेसिक चीज की, अगर इस तरफ भी आप ध्यान देते हैं, इस तरफ भी आप एफर्ट लगाते हैं कि 3 चीज तो है ही, कि संघ का है, अवधारणा है, धम्म एक जो है यूनिवर्सल लॉ जो हम पर गवर्न करता है, और तीसरा है बुद्ध जो इस चीज को जानने की क्षमता रखने वाली, इस चीज को जानने की ऊर्जा या क्षमता रखने वाली एक मन स्थिति या एक स्टेट। तो यहाँ तक सर ने हमें कहा, ये मैंने बहुत संक्षिप्त में कहा। सर, वाज आई लाइक, डिड आई पुट इट? So also we have almost come to the end of our session, sir.
Okay.
We couldn't take questions today more because we have another session lined up today.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we can close it today and then we can have it.
Yes, sir. So again, sir, it was very great and very insightful, because even coming back to basics is also important. Even I regained many things, and also got knowledge of many more things which I may have skipped before. So बेसिक्स पे बार बार आना भी बहुत जरूरी है, क्योंकि आपको फिर से नए आयाम से आपको बुद्धिज्म पे, और आपके जो भी कोशिशें हैं, अगर आप पढ़ाई कर रहे हैं, कुछ कर रहे हैं, तो बुद्धिज्म भी ये चाहता है कि आप एफर्ट करते रहे, आप अपने आप को पुश करते रहे। सर ने भी कहा कि लेजी व्यक्ति की बुद्धिज्म में कोई जगह नहीं है, उनको हमेशा काम करते रहना है। तो बेसिक्स पे आना और वापस जाना, ये बहुत जरूरी है। और सर ने बहुत अच्छे तरह से हमको बेसिक्स में वापस ले हैं। Thank you so much, sir, for discussing the basics again, and it was very insightful, and I'm sure our students will be delighted to have you back in another session, and we'll take up the questions which were asked today in the next session for sure. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll meet again next Saturday. Next month Saturday. And I'm so glad to see many of the people coming again and again. Very important. We need to have spaces like this in which we clarify what Buddhism is. And we are a small community. We need to clarify these issues, and this is a good space for that. So thank you so much, Subodh. Thank you so much, everybody, for giving me the opportunity to discuss these issues with everybody. Thank you so much.
Sir, thank you so much, sir. Oh, Jai Bhim.